Hello, in this episode I'm going to be putting bearings in one of my Lego trains. First off, I had to buy the bearings, obviously, so I went online and I found out that the size I needed was MR52ZZ bearings. So I went on eBay, as you can see here, and bought them from here, and it was about £10.49. Yep, £10.49 for 10 pieces. I needed 16, so I had to buy 20, so that came in at about £21. The tools needed for this, I used a hammer, a set of pliers, pair of pliers there, and a clamp, so I could clamp the pliers to my workbench. Really I needed a vise, but I had this kind of clamp which works like a vise, so you only really need like a small, sort of model maker's vise. This is for pushing the bearing into the Technic brick. So first off, I clamped my pliers to the worktop. This is so I can hit the axle into the bearing while the bearing's in the brick, and it doesn't push the bearing out of the brick, if you see what I mean. And also a bit of grease just to put on the axles to make it a little bit easier going through the bearings when you hit the axle into the bearing. And this is the carriage that I will be fitting the bearings to. And first off, we'll do a little test with the carriage without the bearings. These are just axles going through Technic pins. As you can see, it's not brilliant. We'll do the best of three. What I'll do is I'll mark on the sleeper here with a red brick, see how far it goes. Let's just see. It's about the same. And we'll do it one more time. There we go. Yep, not brilliant. So now we're going to fit the bearings. Right, let's get to work. Let's take this roof off, make things a bit easier, stop it getting in the way. So I'm going to turn the carriage upside down because obviously I need to remove the bogies. So that's the first one removed. I'll just take the second one off. And that grey blooming Technic plate always comes off, so just push that back on. Right, that's that on. Let's move the whole carriage out of the way now and concentrate on the bogies, because now we've got to take these apart. And the sides come off to reveal the wheels. As you can see, those sides really just hold the wheels on, stop them falling off. And remove them, you can see there's quite a bit of sort of damage there. You can see the dust from the pins there. This particular carriage has been run at quite a lot of shows over the last 18 months, so it's in desperate need of some maintenance and some changes to how it actually runs. So this is why I thought bearings would be the best solution. It'd be interesting to see how this performs and what the state of it will be like in 18 months time. Hopefully not as bad as this pin. As you can see, look at all that dust. It's pretty bad. So yeah, I'm glad I'm fitting bearings to this train now. That's all the pins removed. Now here's my pack of bearings. I'll just open it up and empty it under here, and you can see how tiny they are. But they do fit into a Technic hole, albeit quite snug, but it will fit. So now we need to put the bearing into the Technic hole into the Technic brick using the vise. I'm going to use this green plate just to make it easier to hold on to. So I've kind of got to balance this bearing into the hole, and I've got my vise, quite a small distance there, just enough to get the brick and that bearing in. And now I've got it flush. I'll just tighten it up to push the bearing into the brick nice and evenly. There we go. Undo it, put it out, and as you can see, there it is, nice and flush into the brick. And we'll just repeat that process for all the bearings and all the Technic bricks. And now we've got to insert the axles into the bearings, which is quite tricky. The axles are very tight, and you've got to be careful when hitting the axle into the bearing that you don't damage the bearing and that you don't actually push the bearing out of the Technic brick. I put a little bit of grease onto the end of the axle, just makes it slightly easier, gives it a little bit of lubrication to go through the actual bearing. As you can see, we balanced the brick over the pliers because the pliers will make a big enough gap to let the axle come through, but it won't have enough gap to let the bearing come through either, so the bearing's actually supported. So we keep tapping, and you want about 3-4 mil of axle showing through the bearing. It's not too bad. It's just a bit of trial and error here, and there we go. Just keep hitting it and inspect it each time, and there we go. You can see what's that? That's about 3 mil, 3 to 4 mil of axle showing through the bearing. And what we've got to do now is do the other side. What I'm doing now is I've got 2 more Technic bricks. The ones in grey, they're just used as spacers, but they'll be on permanently, because once I've got the other bearing on, they'll be sort of locked in place. So yeah, it's just all held in place by a 2x3 plate and a 1x3 brick as well. That is just for doing this process. It's just a bit easier to hold. Another bit of grease on the end of that axle, and here we go. It's the same sort of process. Just be careful when hitting the axle as well. You don't want to go walloping it because you'll just damage the axle as well. You'll just end up blunting the end and you won't be able to put the wheels back on. So just tap away, but yeah, just be a bit careful with it. And let's have a look. Yeah, still needs a bit more. So yeah, you can see I just adjusted the pliers a little bit just to grip that axle, and tap it a bit more, and hopefully all those bricks will fit snugly together. Just a bit more. As you can see, it takes a little bit of time, not too much. Just keep tapping away, and then you sort of want to keep looking at both sides just to make sure both sides are kind of equal. So if we look at here, see you've got about sort of 3 mil, but you've got a little bit of a gap there, a little bit of play. So we'll just do a bit more tapping just to get that all nice and snug. Shouldn't take too much. How's that? No, a little bit more. And there you can see we've closed the gap. It looks pretty equal on both sides. Just wipe off the excess grease on the ends of the axles, and there we have it. That's ready to be fitted into our bogey. And it fits really well back into the bogey. Just push it down, make sure everything grips. There we go, lovely. We've just got to repeat that process for the rest of this bogey and for the other bogey. And here we are with our complete bogey. It looks a lot smarter now, doesn't it, with those bearings. You can see my spacer bricks in there. Let's put the wheels back on. Let's get this all back to how it was, so we can give it a test and see if these bearings are worth it and if it's made much difference. Just got to reattach the bogies to the carriage. Shouldn't take too long. Push these on. Right, that's both bogies back on the carriage. That feels better already. Let's stick the roof back on because now we're going to test it and we want it the same as it was before. So here's our bit of test track. Put the carriage on the track, and as you can see, that red brick that's marked where the carriage ended up last time without any bearings. So I'm just going to push it up to the backstop and release and see how it does. Oh wow, that's a lot better, isn't it? A vast improvement on the old carriage. As you can see, it's probably gone about, what, 3 or 4 train lengths than it did before. I think it's worth the time and the money for these bearings. We'll just have another go just to make sure it's not a fluke. Brilliant. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you found it useful. If you liked it, please click like and subscribe. Bye.